one of the worst things you can do in the middle of challenging times is to sit there and do nothing. I think at least if you take a step, even if it's the wrong step, it leads to another door, it leads to an open door, and eventually you find the answers.
Hi, I'm Devon Harris. Welcome to Keep On Pushing TV, where we share ideas and insights that are going to absolutely challenge and inspire you to keep on pushing and live your best life. By the way, if you haven't done so yet, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave us a comment and give us a like as well. Leave us a thumbs up because it really helps to grow the channel. Looking forward to your help. My guest today is Meridith Elliott Powell. She's a sales strategist, a leadership expert, a certified speaking professional, and an award-winning author. She helps today's businesses stop viewing uncertainty as something that prevents them from being successful. She shows them how to not let unpredictability be an obstacle to their success, but to start embracing today's uncertainty in order to drive their organization's growth and achieve phenomenal results. I know you're going to enjoy this one. Thanks for tuning in.
This is Keep On Pushing TV with Devon Harris.
Meridith, thank you so much for joining us here and Keep On Pushing. How have you been?
I have been well, thank you. It's been a busy and an interesting year.
Yeah, here we are at the end of 2020, and it's hard in a way, just amazing to imagine that we are here, given the uncertainty that has swirled around this year. It's been incredible from that standpoint, hasn't it?
Yeah, I sort of feel like I've gotten a PhD since March. I just can't believe how much has changed and how much we've learned and how just as a society, how much we've adapted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to delve into some of that in a bit. But look, today, Meridith, you're a leadership expert, a sales strategist, an award-winning author, certified keynote speaker, and all of that, and amazing. And I want to definitely delve into some of the ideas and strategies that you share with your clients. But before that, and anyone who has watched us know that I like to talk about the journey. So before we go into all of these amazing things that you have accomplished, I'd love for you to introduce us to little Meridith, that time in your life, when you were not this amazing, successful business person, and you had, all these dreams and aspirations. Please share with us those early experiences.
Oh, I love starting this way. I was not the kid who ever knew what she wanted to be or really had goals as to exactly, where my life was going to turn out. I'm still very close to my three girlfriends that I've been friends with since grade school. All three of them knew exactly what they wanted to do in life and exactly what they wanted to accomplish. And I was always sort of the kid who I was far more interested in building relationships and building connections. And I was always more present than I was ever focused on the future. So I graduated from high school and was a little bit lost and took a year off, kind of waited tables and spent my time at the beach or skied.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Uniontown, Pennsylvania. It's 60 miles southwest of Pittsburgh, and it's coal mining country.
So you're a coal miner's daughter, as it were.
Yeah, pretty.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, pretty much. Really little small town, but it was a great way to grow up. I went to college at Penn State, stayed there a few years, and dropped out again. Still kind of clueless as to what I wanted to do. But after my father cut me off financially, which was probably the kindest thing he ever did for me. He said, "You certainly can drop out of school, do whatever you want to do with your life, Meridith, but your parents are not going to support you anymore." That was a rude awakening, which threw me back into college in about a year. But I ended up paying for college myself at that point. went on to get an MBA, and started out a career, again, never really having a goal. I think what's really interesting more about my journey is that I have followed a passion more than I followed a job description. And what I like to do is help organizations and people navigate really challenging times. So I've worked in travel and tourism, I've worked in banking, I've worked in healthcare. And what I've noticed about all of the jobs I've ever had is I went into the industries because the industries were going through painful change. And I like to strategically figure out how a business needs to navigate that, and then emotionally help people learn to turn uncertainty to something of a positive.
Mm. So you're the kind of person who was always developing these relationships. You had I would say you're living fairly comfortably because your parents were supporting you, and the flip the switch kind of flipped when your dad goes, "Hey, you're gonna be on your own now." So how did you process that level of discomfort and uncertainty in those early years?
Well, at first I thought he was kidding. I never, I'm the youngest of 4 children, and my father was, my mother was a disciplinarian, not my father. My father, you could roll right over him like anything. So I didn't take him seriously at all. And then my car broke down. I think I was driving a Gremlin or something ridiculously cheap, and you could knock over with a feather. And I called him for money to fix my car, and he said no. And I was just in shock. But here's the thing: is I'm not much. I act. I don't think. That's not a good thing, but that's just the way I process. I just am constantly in motion. So the moment he threw that cold water in my face, it was actually wintertime. It was very hard to find work. And I was waiting tables at the time. We weren't making much money. I could barely pay my rent. And I just went out and got 2 more jobs because that's just how I functioned. And so I don't know that I processed it as much as I just took action. Now, what's interesting about that is that's the whole premise of my business. My business is named Motion First. And the reason it's named Motion First is because while I think processing and thinking is important, I mean, you need plans, you need to think through things. I believe that people learn and people succeed through doing and movement. One of the worst things you can do in the middle of challenging times is to sit there and do nothing. I think at least if you take a step, even if it's the wrong step, it leads to another door, it leads to an open door, and eventually you find the answers. So if I had to say any way I processed, really that's how I processed is I just, I ended up working 3 jobs. I worked 24/7, figured out pretty quickly that I needed to get my behind back in college if I was ever going to get out of this cycle.
Yeah, no, but I so believe in that philosophy as well, Meredith, that some people, they end up this in this condition, analysis by or paralysis by analysis. And I think it's so important that you take action, even when you feel overwhelmed and frustrated and you have no idea what's going on. The smallest of action, maybe in the big scheme of things, this action that you take might be really tiny, but for the moment it's huge because it gets you moving. And you're right, even if it's the wrong door, at least you figure out it's a wrong door, and you actually do feel better about yourself because you're doing something to make things better, right?
Yeah, I think there's I don't know what the psychology is around it, but when I take movement, at least I feel like I'm in some semblance of control. And I think control is what we want in uncertainty. It's what calms us down. And ironically, it's the one thing you can't have, but there are little things that you can do to take some control, and action is one of them.
Yeah. I feel that, it's, I don't know what the psychology is as well. I didn't sleep on the Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But you're right, though. It does. It gives you a sense of, even in the middle of uncertainty, it gives you a sense of certainty that,
Yes.
hey, I got this. I may not know what I'm doing yet, but at least I'm moving forward. So how many years did you spend in corporate America, finding yourself in these situations where you were, kind of bringing a certain level of certainty to these different companies?
I worked about 20 years in corporate America. Like I said, I started in travel and tourism, moved into the healthcare market at that point. And lastly, I moved into the financial services space. And what was interesting, I had a lot of luck in financial services. I was working in the banking space when it got really heavily regulated and very competitive. And we had a lot of luck. We did really well. And I was given this huge promotion. I mean, walked to the corner office that came with the country club memberships, and the on the right level of the corporate office building. And all of a sudden it hit me that I'd been working very hard to achieve something I didn't want. I didn't want to live in the town I was living in. I didn't want to work as much as I was working. I didn't want the trappings of meetings and the things that came with the position. And that's kind of an interesting piece, because what it really made me aware of was, and something I help my clients do now, as you build your visions and your dreams, don't build it just for work. You need to think about your life. And I had been so busy chasing a dream of work, I'd forgotten about my life. And when I achieved my work dream, the two didn't mesh together.
Indeed. I was just thinking as you were speaking about Stephen Covey, speaking about, hey, make sure you have a clear vision, because the last thing you want is to climb the ladder of success and then discover that the ladder is leaned against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
I suppose that was a rude awakening for you to realize that you have all the trappings of success, but it wasn't really fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, Devon, I think one of the funny things about me is that I don't learn unless it's really painful. So, so yeah, it was really hard, because I stood there at 40 years old. My first husband had passed away, and I found myself single, living in a town that I didn't want to live in, with a job that I didn't want, and I was about to walk away from all of it, and that was probably one of the hardest things I ever did. But I felt like 40 is such a powerful age. Like, you're old enough to be taken seriously, but you're young enough that if it doesn't work out, you can still have the time to put your life back together. And I just started looking at people who were 10 years older than I was. And I looked at people that I really admired the way they lived, and people that I didn't admire the way that they lived. Like, their life wasn't for me. And I started to think that if I was ever going to make changes in my life, 40 was the age to make them. Now at 57, I still think I'm really young. So I'm still making changes and things, but I don't know, it was that wake up call that I'm so grateful for, to think I need to do something now. If I want the life I want, I better start doing it now. And kind of what we were talking about in the essence of taking a step, I didn't know what to do. So I just took a step, and one step led to another. And that put me here, both professionally and personally, which is somewhere I'm very grateful to be.
Indeed. So a new vision. I think what I'm hearing as well is that although you use 40 as the benchmark, I seem to believe, I really do believe that, you can start over at any time. Are the challenges and the risks different at different ages? Absolutely. But if you are in a place where you're just not happy with your life, don't go on being unhappy. I mean, why would you spend the rest of your years unhappy? Figure a way to take that first step and move on. So you did just that. How did you decide on speaking and training and so on?
Yeah, probably like most speakers, I fell into it. But I was lucky enough that I was working for a great boss at the time when I decided not to take that job. And I went to him and I said, I think I really want to go into business for myself. It had been something that had been gnawing at me for a very long time. I said, but I'm scared. I'm the sole support for myself. I've never not had a salary. And I said, I've got an idea, and I want to know if you would help me with the idea. And the idea was that he would let me stay in the position I was in, but we would change my role to allow me to work for some consultants that we had hired to work for the financial institution. Now, I had put a lot of heart and soul into that company. I had built a lot of credibility and a lot of sweat equity. So for him to turn around and do me a favor was an incredibly kind thing to do, but it also wasn't out of the blue. I mean, I felt like he felt like I truly had paid my dues, and it was a kind thing to do. But he really built that bridge for me so that I could learn the ropes of how to be in business with myself, for myself, but I could still have the security of earning a salary. And I gave myself a deadline of 1 year. But what I want your listeners to understand from that is that here I found myself in a position where I was scared to go out on my own. I was the sole support for myself. So I had to figure out how to make a living. I came up with the idea, and I had the courage to go ask for what I wanted. And I think one of the most important lessons I've learned in life is the importance of finding your voice, being solution oriented, and asking for what you want. And that started the process. And from there, I didn't have a clue whether he would say yes, but that led one thing to another. And eventually I went to work for some of those consultants, learned the ropes, and eventually went out on my own. I'm a certified strategist by training. I'm a strategic planner. And I was just doing a lot of strategic planning for companies, and we would have a lot of luck. The businesses that I worked with did well. And slowly people said, would you come talk to our Rotary Club? Would you talk to our Kiwanis Club? Much like most speakers out there. And I would say, sure. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, did you know you could get paid for that? And I had no idea. And they said, you need to find yourself at the National Speakers Association. Go to the Charlotte chapter, which is near my house. And I did. And that totally changed my life. I mean, National Speakers Association just opened doors and gave me information that I had no idea this type of work really existed.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, it's a really important, powerful mindset, to be solution oriented versus problem oriented, especially during times of uncertainty, which is what all of us collectively are experiencing now, right? Here we are at the end of the year, but I remember, and both of us are speakers, and so this has impacted us as significantly as anyone else. My last time on stage was that first week in March, and I remember being on stage in San Diego, speaking to a group of meeting planners, saying, "Hey, this COVID thing, hey, let's keep on living our lives, right?" And then the week after I woke up, I remember so clearly. It was a Thursday. I'm like, I'm not going back to the gym.
Yeah.
And this is before I live in New York. The state was completely shut down, because I began to realize how impactful and dangerous this virus was, and all of us had a role to play. What was your experience?
Yeah, my experience was pretty much the same. So I, like you, my last time on stage was March 7th. I was in Austin, Texas. I was going to stay there through the weekend because I was speaking for Coldwell Banker that following week, that Monday. And I got the call from them that they were going virtual. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. So I flew home I actually flew to Charleston, South Carolina. My husband and I have a second home in Charleston, and we just decided we'd take a vacation. So we went to the beach for a week, and I sat there in front of my computer for a week as every ounce of revenue, every speaking engagement I have just got canceled. And probably like you and most people, I went through 3 phases. Number one was I got really mad. I mean, this wasn't fair. It wasn't right. Why was it happening to me? I got fearful. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to make a living? I'm going to have to sell everything I own on eBay. And then, just like we've been talking about, pretty quickly, I moved into action. And I just, when I was a kid, my mother taught me that the fastest way to get past your own problems is to focus on somebody else's. And she's right. And so I just decided that there wasn't a thing I could do about my situation, but I just started to call my clients and my customers and say, how are you? What do I need? What do you need? No charge. How can I help you? And it was from those phone calls that I found my path forward.
Yeah. Again, rather than sitting there and bemoaning this misfortune, you decided to take action. So talk to us more specifically, Meredith, about how you've pivoted from, like I have, being on stage to being virtual.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I can think about that very first virtual presentation I did for Coldwell Banker. I did it on my little, this little laptop,
Right.
with my virtual background with Zoom, kind of sitting at a desk. I don't even ever want to see the recording of that. It could just be so bad. But my journey to pivot was truly from reaching out and talking to my customers. And I would hear things that they would need, like, we're not sure how to keep our culture in a virtual world. What's our responsibility with, can we lay employees off? Should we, not? How do we communicate better? So I just started creating free tools and resources for people. Like, I would hear, like, 3 people would ask me a question. So then I would do a webinar, and I would share that webinar with other people. Mm-hmm. So my thought process was, I am going to become the resource. I am going to become where my clients go when they want information, they want ideas, and they need help with how to navigate through this. Devon, right from the start, I very much felt that people who do what we do for a living, that we were essential workers. I mean, people needed hope. They needed inspiration. They needed ideas and strategies. So I felt like what I was supposed to do was to figure out what the biggest problems were. Then I needed to solve those problems. Then I needed to go back and share the answers with my clients. And at first, through March and April, it was completely free. I did everything pro bono. And then slowly it just started to turn into paid work as people recognized me as a resource, but also they started to figure it out too, mm-hmm. And so business slowly, around June, it started to somewhat return. And through that process, it wasn't only about solving their problems, it was also about solving what it would need to look like for me, to the point of building a home studio, changing my content so it was more relevant, reaching out to maybe industries that were more successful during COVID than those that were not. So being able to still serve the ones who were struggling in a pro bono type of way, but then being able to support those businesses that were doing well by building my business into other markets.
Yeah. We know, Meredith, that change is a natural, inevitable part of life. And sometimes change is so significant that it is completely disruptive, as it is now. How do we condition ourselves? How do we train our minds? How do we prepare ourselves for change?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, change is the one thing that we know is going to happen, yet it's the thing that we fight more than anything. And here's the problem, I think, with change is that we wait for change to show up. So no wonder we don't like it. I mean, I'm sitting here in my own little world. I don't want anything to change. I know things are going to change. So why don't I start to think about change before it happens? I mean, I really think that change can be your greatest opportunity if you see it coming. But if you ignore it, change is going to bury you. It's going to think that derails your business and your life. I mean, think about your personal life. I said I'm 57. I'm getting older. My husband and I have experienced, aging parents. We have kids, that have gone through shifts that have, had financial needs. If we sit down and think about the changes happening in our lives, we can prepare for those changes. It's why you have a rainy day fund. It's why you have retirement. It's why you think about the things that you need in order to sustain yourself. It's that way in your business too. There's a tool that I use called a skeptic. And I tell all my clients to use it. And it's simply a set of words: society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, customers. Society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, customers. And if you would just spend every 30 days, just brainstorm about the changes that you see happening in those areas. What do you see happening politically? What do you see happening with customers? What do you see happening with technology? And what, if anything, do you need to be preparing for now? In essence, it's the difference between Netflix and Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Blockbuster was a company that didn't pay attention to change, And Netflix was a company that has conditioned themselves for change. The company they were 2 years ago is not the company they are now, is not the company they'll be a year from now.
Indeed. So, skeptic, I love that. So, as a business owner, small business owner, employ this new strategy that you just shared with us, skeptic. But as your company is going through or find themselves in the midst of this turmoil, what are one or two ideas from a leadership standpoint that you could share with them to help them navigate, them and their staff navigate these times?
Yeah, one of the most important things you need to do is to have what I call a relentless vision. One of the best ways I can describe this is you need to understand as a leader that 2% of the population are visionaries, 12% are strategic thinkers, and the rest of the people are tactical, meaning they're just thinking about what's in front of them. And as a leader, you have to paint the picture of the future because people can't see it. And if they can't see it, they don't have hope and they don't know what they're working for. The best example I can think of is Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. People were fighting for civil rights, something they didn't even know they could win, and something that they couldn't imagine how things would be different, but was a hell of a slog and a painful fight to get through. What Martin Luther King Jr. did in the middle of that speech was he painted the future so that everybody could see what he could see and could understand why the pain they were going through was worth it. You have to do the same thing with your team. You don't have to be as articulate as Martin Luther King Jr., but you have to help me understand, if I work for you, why am I coming to work every day? What am I forcing myself through when things look really bad, when you're furloughing people around me, when we're having to make expense cuts, or I'm doing without a paycheck? If you're not helping me understand why and what I'm working towards, then I'm not going to stay engaged during the fight.
No, you're absolutely right. I often speak about the fact that the leader need to have that vision and be able to clearly articulate it. And you're right, it doesn't have to have the authority skills of Martin Luther King, but you have to be to tell people and to be honest with them. I think that's key too, right? Just being honest with
Yes.
the situation. And then if people can understand that, my experience is that, people will go to hell and back for you if they feel that, there's something in it for them. That radio station we all listen to, WIIFM, what's
Yeah.
in it for me. So if they feel like, hey, the struggle is worth it, man, because there's no guarantee, but at the end of this road, there's a possibility that this is how it's going to be, then people feel better about moving forward. So we're talking about the visions. Can you speak a little bit more about the need to have clear, powerful, honest communication?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes leaders make is keeping information from people. It's never a good idea, but in uncertain marketplaces, people don't need you to give them security. In fact, they won't believe it. I mean, if I worked for you right now and you stood in front of me and you told me that I was going to have a job next year and that our company wouldn't merge, things wouldn't change, I wouldn't believe you. Even if that was your intention, I would not believe you. But what you need to do is you need to provide people hope. But at the same time, you need to be transparent. You don't need to be negative. You don't need to say, I don't know what we're going to do or something like that, but you need to be honest. You need to tell them that times are tough. People want to help you. And you need to understand that team wants to help you be successful. But here's the thing. When you're being transparent, also do it in the form of a question. Say, look, we're in for challenging times. Things are tough out there. We have got to increase sales by 10% if we're going to be here this time next year. What are your ideas for helping us increase sales by 10%? Because the moment that you ask me a question, you give me voice and you give me responsibility. You've made me a part of something. And for you just to not include me in that makes me feel more fearful and scared than I did before. But the moment you say, Meredith, I want to know what you think, now I feel like I'm helping. I have some control over helping us be successful. So it's about being transparent, but at the same time, you got to learn to lead through the power of the question.
Yeah, you're right. People want to feel that they are part and parcel of the solution. I think the challenge with some speakers, Meredith, and feel free to chime in here, is that they feel that if they have to ask for help, it means that they're weak and they're showing vulnerability, which in my mind, because we're all humans and none of us are all powerful and, in my opinion, not smart enough to have all the answers, showing a little bit of vulnerability is actually strong leadership.
Yeah, there's no way. The problems that we face right now, they're too big for one person, one industry, one organization to solve. And you have to learn to ask for help. But as a leader, asking for help, what you need to understand is, first of all, you're at the helm. You can't have all the answers. The people doing the job will have probably better answers than you do. At the same time, it doesn't even matter if they don't. You get credit just for asking. Building culture is about letting people be a part of something. And if you're not asking them for ideas, then you're shutting them out. And if you shut them out, they'll leave to go find someplace they can be a part of. People want to feel they want to do work that matters, and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, but they literally want to be a part of that. They want to give you their ideas. They want to help you grow your business. You just have to ask yourself, am I letting them do that?
Yeah. Speak to us a little bit about how we use uncertainty and turn it into a competitive advantage, which I know is also the title of your book.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very excited about this. I mean, a couple of years ago, I became obsessed with the word uncertainty, how we think about it, how we feel about it, how we react to it. And much like we've been talking about today, we do not like the word. In fact, research shows that you would rather I sit on this podcast and tell you something bad is going to happen in 2021 than I have no idea what's going to happen. And I really became fascinated with that. And I thought, why does uncertainty always have to be a negative? Why does it always have to be a bad thing? And what if uncertainty was actually a positive? What if it was something, it was a level of disruption that had to happen to take our businesses and our organizations to another level? And that put me on a mission. I found 9 companies that have been in business since the late 1700s, early 1900s, and they're still in business today. And what that means is they've come through world wars, they've come through economic depression, and maybe even survived a pandemic. And from that, I built a 9-step formula for thriving in uncertainty. It's a step-by-step set of strategies that you need to do. You need to do them in order that actually, when done, put you in a position that no matter what the uncertainty is, whether it's a new competitor in your market, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a new set of regulations, you're well positioned for success.
Indeed. Awesome. Want to give us maybe 2 or 3?
Yeah, sure. So we've talked about a couple. I mean, we talked about relentless vision, and we talked about conditioning ourselves for change. One of my favorites is called Secure Your Base. And that's about focusing on your existing customers first, that the path to growth in an uncertain marketplace is from the inside out. And the reason is because you need to focus on talking and engaging with your existing customers, because what you sold before the marketplace shifted and what you sell now has to change. You may sell the same products or services, but the problems you solve are different because your customers' problems are different. I'm going to tell you a quick story from the book that really emphasizes this. It's from Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble was started in the 1800s by 2 men who married sisters. One of the men sold candles and the other sold soap, and they competed for animal fat. Their future father-in-law said, boys, rather than competing, why don't you form a company? And Procter & Gamble was born. One of the very first products they decided to sell was soap. Now, talk about a commodity. I don't care who's listening to this podcast out there, but there can't be any product more difficult to differentiate yourself in a marketplace than soap. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they lived and died by this creed of securing your base. Before they put any product to market, they went out and talked to existing customers, not prospects, existing customers. Tell us what you like about the product. Tell us what you don't like about the product. You know, what do you wish you had in the product that you don't? And what they discovered was people love soap. People use soap and people wanted to buy soap. But the problem with soap was that you would lather up with soap, it would slip out of your hands, and it would go to the bottom of the bathtub, and you would have to search for it.
Mm-hmm.
They invented ivory soap, the soap that floats. And they simply injected air into ivory soap and got the tagline exactly from their customers, not a fancy marketing department. And by the end of the 1800s, Procter & Gamble was $1 million company. The path to profitability in an uncertain marketplace is about being relevant. And the only way to be relevant is to literally understand the products and services that your customers sell.
Indeed, being relevant regardless of the market conditions. You know, Meridith, there's so many different things that we can and need to speak about. We're probably going to have a part 2 to this conversation.
I love that.
But first of all, tell us, how do we find that book and the others?
Yeah.
Because is that like your 7th book now?
Yeah, it's my 7th. It's my 7th book, but I've got to tell you, Devon, I am more excited about this book than anything. It is based in heavy research. The stories of these companies are fascinating. So if you go to my website, which is just valuespeaker.com, just the words valuespeaker.com, you're going to find a couple of things there. Number one, at the top, you'll find a purple bar called Emerge Successful. Just click on that bar and you're going to find free tools and resources plus 9 videos that lay out each step in the formula. You'll also on my website find out more about the book and where you can pre-order the book. And I would just love for people to reach out and connect with me. I'm a big believer that if you build your network, it changes your life. So if you connect with me, I'll definitely connect with you.
Indeed. So is that where, if someone wanted to hire you as a speaker or to work on some sales or business strategy, is that where they would find you as well, at valuespeakers.com?
Yeah, they find me at valuespeaker.com. I'm also super active on LinkedIn as well. So would love that. Yeah, you can reach out to talk to me about speaking and sales, or if you just want to connect, I love that. I love that too.
All right. So valuespeakers.com. And of course, on LinkedIn, you can find Meridith Elliott. I'm sorry.
Meridith Elliott Powell.
Powell. Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of names.
Meridith Elliott Powell. Meridith Elliott Powell, it's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your ideas and your insights. I love the fact that you like to take action, right? Motion first. That is definitely part and parcel of the Keep On Pushing philosophy, and you epitomize that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great being here.
Awesome.